Hey, hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? Um, what we're going to be talking about today is our grid, okay? And if you're wondering about what this is, it's my TENS unit, okay? I re-injured my shoulder that I had surgery on a few years ago, and this helps take and relieve the symptoms. Okay. Um, Late last year, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation had warned that much of the United States power grid, which is the only major power grid without a plan, that's really scary, okay, and parts of Canada are vulnerable to major winter storms. And this was confirmed that 70% of power outages in the US are weather related, caused by natural weather phenomena like ice, lightning, rain, snow, wind, and even dust, if you can imagine that, but a dust storm per se. For instance, God bless you, millions of households went without power. If you remember when Winter Storm Elliott hit the eastern United States in December of 2022. Knowing the places that will most likely suffer from a power grid collapse is crucial to anyone that is serious uh, of the prepared mind, of a prepper, of a survivalist, okay? And from the latest electrical reliability data that was released on September 20th, 2023, there are 3 top states with the worst power grids, okay? So if you live in any one of these 3 states, I want you to please listen up, okay? Even if you have family that live or friends that live in these 3 states, please listen up. Louisiana, they have an aging electrical grid, which does not keep up with an extreme weather. When Hurricane Ida made its landfall in Louisiana in 2021, nearly 1 million people lost power, and many of the state's residents lived without electricity for more than a month. On September 23rd, 2021, the Louisiana Public Service Commission said that sometimes there just isn't enough electricity to meet unusually high demands. Power is never guaranteed in Louisiana, especially at the end of August, the beginning of September, pretty much when it's at its hottest, and pretty much when the hurricane season is at its peak. Okay. Now, while Louisiana is known for its history, having flair all on its own, with amazing architecture, Mardi Gras, great cuisine, fantastic music, and a lot more, you would not want to be there in any of its cities that have been identified as most of the most dangerous cities, especially during blackouts. The next state is Oregon. Oregon, their system shares power with much of what the West Coast grid call the Western Interconnection. Most grid infrastructure in Oregon is built above ground. Why? Because it's cheaper on construction costs. However, above ground power lines are more vulnerable to weather events. In a post released on December 14th, 2022, by the Oregon City Utility Board, or CUB, described its grid as increasingly at risk with extreme weather events, wildfires, ice storms, and it's becoming more frequent and they last longer. Since mid-November 2022, Portland General Electric, Bonneville Power Administration, Cowlitz County Public Utility District, and Puget, Puget, Sound Energy have confirmed that there is a total of 6 separate attacks on electrical substations that they manage in Oregon and Washington that have left thousands of residents without electricity for days. Now, details on these attacks, including setting the control houses on fire, forced entry and sabotage of intricate electrical control systems, causing short circuits by tossing chains across the overhead busywork, and the ballistic attack on small caliber firearms. Unlike most other states in the US, Texas predominantly operates on its own independent power grid. However, this isolation also means that it cannot readily tap into neighboring grids when it is faced with a deficit. From freezing winter storms that paralyze power grids to scorching summer days that can overload the Texas grid. Extreme weather puts more strain on that system, especially as metropolitan areas like Austin, Dallas, Houston, with the sheer number of businesses and consumers connecting to the grid, overloading Texas' aging infrastructure. Then you have natural gas and wind that generate most of the Texas electricity and its infrastructure. It's not winterized against freezing temperatures. When Winter Storm Uri, URI, from February 13th and 17th of 2021 led to more than 210 perishments and caused almost 70% of Texas to be without power, and 50% lost water. Now, there are myths, there are realities, there's problems, and there's also solutions. The myth is that the U.S. electric grid is often referred to as the greatest machine in the world. It is indeed an engineered marvel, a network of several 100,000 miles of power lines connecting thousands of electric generators to power households and businesses across the contiguous United States. But the reality is that the U.S. power grid is, in fact, highly fragmented and consists of not one, but 3 different sections. These are called Eastern, Western, and ERCOT interconnections. ERCOT is Texas. 3 separate power grids that are almost completely isolated from another, electrically speaking. And to make matters worse, the high voltage, the long distance electric transmission lines that form the backbone of each of these grids are largely planned in even greater isolation. The problem is that this type of framework, meaning how it's built, how it's interconnected, how it all roots in together, okay, is highly problematic because the power grid is undergoing stress from extreme weather. High stress events like Winter Storm Elliott are becoming increasingly frequent. And the weather patterns are much larger than our current grids and our grid planning regions, which therefore struggle with the coordinated response that is needed to future-proof our vital power supply system. So what do? How do you prepare? Well, because I'm a list maker and I have many, many prepper notebooks, take one piece of paper or get your prepper notebook out and take a piece of paper and write down the first 10 things that you would do in a grid down scenario. And just write down whatever you think should happen in your home and or your circumstances. There's no wrong answers, of course, just maybe in different sequences. Then take another piece of paper and write down the first 10 things that you would do in the same grid down scenario, but now it's in the middle of summer, Okay, because right now we're in February, so it's still winter. So do the same thing, but in summertime. And my guess is that most everything you have written down will change somewhat in order of importance, or you may have added new items to that list. Now, you have 2 lists. Look them over. Having a list will help you remember the important things that should be done when you are in a state of shock and chaos. And just because these electric companies or the grid operators or the government, whatever the case may be, just because they have no backup plan does not mean that you should not have a backup plan. So make those 2 lists and start making your backup plan now. Okay? All right, guys, I'm out of here. I will see you in the next one. You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fearless. Ciao.